Hey everyone, this is the first video on the Selfless Immortal channel. I wanted to go over something that would be a lot more interesting for a general audience. So my idea is the unknown, where I expand on fan fictions. So my fan fiction idea is a rewrite of Boruto from Boruto Next Generations all the way into Boruto to Blue Vortex, which is currently ongoing. And it's supposed to act as a successor to regular Naruto. So as of right now, the story isn't really going that well. The main characters don't really have that much motivation. The main villains don't really have a plan. They're just kind of doing anything, and the story's kind of falling apart. For the most part, there's a bunch of diehard Boruto fans that are sitting there being like, "Oh yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this show, and there's nothing that should be changed," and they're just straight up wrong, and they haven't wrote a story in their entire life. But essentially, I want to make something where you're actually making a difference, and you're actually expanding on something, and actually doing something that is much more something that's a lot more productive than what would normally be going on with a fan fiction. I was like, oh, I'm going to sit here and rewrite this and and make that just because I don't like the way that somebody else did it, or is just sitting around complaining about the way that it is and just arguing with people. I don't feel like that really achieves anything. So my plan is to just rewrite the entirety of Boruto in and of itself, and also show the entire thing off in a real fake manga. So what a fake manga is would essentially be just collage art, where I am using characters from the regular show and just adding them into collages and putting them into the manga panels and just making it similar to the original show. And from there, I can expand to doing whatever I want to do and showing the actual story. Because with Naruto specifically, they have their own games that we can, you know, add modded characters on there and have them fight each other, and then use frames from that battle on the game, and then use that in the actual fake manga, since the art style of the game is the exact same as the manga. So from there, we can add that and expand on it and put that in the story. And, we can really do something that's actually interesting. And just regardless, the point of making it is not just for the purpose of, oh, I'm going to rewrite Boruto just because I didn't like the way Ikimoto wrote it, or I didn't like, the plot points that they made or whatever. The point of it is to show that everybody on the team has worked on something that is actually reputable, that they can actually put on a portfolio where, like, hey, I worked on this, and it's a rewrite of Boruto and we actually did something. With a regular argument or a debate about, hey, we like this or we didn't like that, most of the time it gets you nowhere. You're just arguing with people, and nobody really achieves anything. With this, where you're actually making something and you're truly making a difference, and you're applying your skills and you're learning as you go. All of these things are something that you're going to learn from, and you're going to learn how to work as a team with other people that are interested in Naruto and didn't really like Boruto, and they want to help you out. They have their own fan fictions that they wrote, and they want to use their skills to help you out and work on the same thing. That is so very important for people to work together. And that is something that you can actually put on a portfolio. You can say, hey, I actually worked on this, and we did this, and from there I've learned this, and this. And you can actually use that in real life, rather than an argument with some, 16-year-old kid in somebody's Discord server arguing about, oh, Kawaki did this, or Boruto did that, or Naruto did this, or Rock Lee should have did that. All of that gets you nowhere. And that's what the whole unknown idea is for. So the whole purpose of the unknown idea is the fact that a lot of writers and artists and whatnot are all in their own group, and they are at different levels. So we have artists that are at these, different companies, and they're working to make a lot of money, and they're basically able to just do whatever they want with their art. They're able to make money off of their art. A lot of them are able to do that because of their connections, is because they know, or it's because the people at that company knew who they were before hiring them. A lot of the time it's like, oh, we know that guy, hire him. Or, oh, we know him from this, hire him. Or we saw him do this, that has nothing to do with anything else. Oh, let's hire him because of that. And it's not really because of a resume or experience or skill. A lot of the time it comes down to that. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So the unknown is that original group of writers that are just like, hey, we're unknown to these people. They don't know who we are, but we're still skilled, and we still want to show our skill, and we want to find a way in order to show what we can really do as writers, and how we can expand and really come forward and be like, okay, here is exactly what we're going to do. Here's how we did it. We built off of what was done in Naruto and Boruto, and we can really make a difference here. And we can actually show that we can create a manga. We can do this, we can do that. And from there, you're showing off your skills. You're showing off exactly what you're able to do. And the fact that you can work with other people. And the point of unknown is the part where you work with other people. Because not only am I going to sit here and work on this Naruto project and be like, okay, I'm making this manga and I'm doing it, and I can put that on my own portfolio and be like, hey, I did this. I can also have other people do the same thing. They can be like, oh yeah, I worked with that guy when he did this. I worked with them. I helped him out with this. I helped him out with that. And they could put that same thing on their resume because they were on the team too. Like, everybody is brought up together. And that's why it's a group for unknown. It's just everybody else is unknown to these people, and we're trying to become known through this act of working with fan fiction and whatnot. Because with fan fiction, everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows who these characters are. Everybody understands them. Everybody, who's working on it kind of grew up with Naruto in a way, where they've been watching the show for a long time, and they understand the characters, and they know exactly what's supposed to happen. And they also know the issues with the current state of the actual anime itself. So that is the idea for unknown. I have a lot more details regarding how exactly you make the fake manga, where you have a bunch of different filters for making it grayscale and making all of the characters look black and white again, and posing the characters with the 3D models, and using different apps in order to add facial expressions and create different poses for them, and different ways to panel each page and make everything look good. All of these are important, and all of these are pretty vital, but that's a lot easier to read and go over on my Substack and just like fully understand exactly how it works. I'd rather show that to you on Substack. So if that's in the description and you want to read it, it'll be there. But for right now, the actual plan for the story itself, if you want to, you can click off if you don't really want to hear about Naruto itself. You just wanted to know about Unknown. But for the actual plan for the story, is essentially what happens is we start on episode 20. So we skip 20 episodes into regular Boruto, and we're not starting at the actual beginning of the manga. We're starting in the anime, because the manga actually starts during the Chunin exams during Boruto, and that's when Momoshiki showed up and started fighting Naruto and his friends. That part we didn't get to yet. We're gonna build up to that. So we're starting on episode 20, the original show, and this is during the Sarada arc. This is the part where Shin Uchiha was fighting Team 7 and then he got jumped by them. This is that part. So on episode 20, you have a section where we have there was one mission where we showed off the Kara. So the Kara, I redesigned the Kara in this one where everybody in their group is a samurai. There's also some information where that shows up where they're actually in the Land of Iron. So all of the members of the Kara being samurai actually does make a little bit more sense in this version of it. Mind you, this story is called Sasuke Shinobi versus Samurai, and it will be going on from one point to another. But that's the point of the story, is where it's a shinobi and you're fighting the samurai, and it's very cut and dry. Before, the Kara were just cyborgs and they're just kind of copying the Akatsuki, and it is not really working out as much, and that's a little bit of an issue. But here, they're a lot more structured. They have they're samurai and they're fighting the ninjas, and that's it. It's a lot more direct. So here they have Ao and Boro, right? So Ao and Boro are both using their transformation jutsu in order to impersonate Hidden Mist Anbu, right? And they, and also Victor went just in plain clothes to go over to the Hidden Leaf, and he's like, "Oh, I need an escort in order to get into the Hidden Mist, in order to do a business deal." And he said it's a business deal about using snake venom within his own medicine that he sells in his business, right? And then he requested to have Hana Inazuka, which is Kiba's sister, Konohamaru, and Anko from all from the original show, right? And that's where we start off. And then the three of them are on this mission with Victor, and they're supposed to be bodyguarding him. And then they go over to the same Great Naruto bridge that was there where Zabuza, Kakashi, and Naruto, they were all fighting over there. It's the same bridge, and they get ambushed by these two Kara members that were impersonating these Anbu shinobi from the Hidden Mist, and they actually end up defeating that whole entire team. And then they killed Anko. They killed her, and they took her body over to the Land of Iron. And meanwhile, this is going on, Delta, one of the other members of the Kara, who's a samurai and a cyborg, she was sent over to the Land of Oni, which is another area in Naruto. This was mainly shown in a movie. This isn't like part of the original, but I did want to bring it back for a reason. So they bring back this one priestess named Priestess Moroku, right? And this lady has a dojutsu where she's able to see into the future. So Delta digs her up out of the ground and gets her body, and then she goes back to the Land of Iron. And meanwhile, so they have these two bodies, and they bring them back to one of the captains from the Kara group. And we also reveal that this captain isn't just your regular old samurai. This guy is actually a clone of Kimimaru. So this is just going to be Kimimaru 2, like Kimimaru the second, like that kind of thing. And it's very similar to what happened with how they cloned Jiraiya and how they have Koji as the clone of Jiraiya. So we're doing that with Kimimaru. Mind you, we're doing that because Kimimaru is actually part of the Kaguya clan, and they were all worshiping the Otsutsukis, and they all had a connection to them. And that's who they're mainly fighting during Boruto. So that's why that connection is there, and that's why it makes a little bit more sense. And it also makes sense a little bit more because Orochimaru, taught Kabuto the reanimation jutsu, and that's something that Kimimaru is about to use right here. So with Kimimaru, he has both of these, both of these dead shinobi. He uses reanimation jutsu, and he uses Anko's dead body in order to revive Priestess Moroku, right? And we also have, so now Kimimaru is in control of Priestess Moroku, and he can just ask her, hey, I need you to look into the future and see what happens here, right? And then they're like, okay, I look into the future, and they're asking, who is going to be the main person that is trying to stop the Otsutsukis? What's going to be one of the main things that gets in the way of our plan? How do we avoid it? They're trying to preemptively get ahead of whatever enemies they have, because they know that the Hidden Leaf has some of the strongest ninjas there, and they know whatever plan that they have is going to be directly in conflict with the Hidden Leaf, and they have to prepare to get around that. They know that. So now they ask the question, and Priestess Moroku is going on about, okay, well, you have this one girl from the Uchiha clan, the daughter of the last Uchiha, and they're like, okay, that sounds a little bit familiar. And then they have, this other flaming sage that they're talking about. And later on, that does become Kawaki, as I'll reveal. But that is something that we're going to get into later on. And then you also say, oh, well, they also talk about the heir of the Hidden Sound Village, that being Mitsuki, because he's the, son of Orochimaru. And then you also have, obviously you have Boruto, one of the last Uzumakis, one of the last people there. And, we go on about who he is, and then they mention him as the son of the child of prophecy, because Naruto was the child of prophecy and he's his son. So son of the child of prophecy. And that's the same kind of, prophecy that they had from before. It's like, oh, well, they had a prophecy, one of the toads had a prophecy about, oh, Naruto, child of prophecy, he's going to save the world and everything. And it's like, oh, it's going to be a student of Jiraiya and everything. That is all connected to this new prophecy that I'm making up. And this is all like, okay, this is her seeing into the far future, which is the end of the story, and how, they eventually win and pull through. And it's like, well, the reason why they won in the end was because of Sarada and something that she did that I'm not going to reveal yet. But with her, she was the main reason why they won. And they're on about like, okay, so Moroku tells them all about that, right? And they're like, okay, so Moroku tells us all this information. So and then they're like, Shin Uchiha, actually in this version, Shin Uchiha is a member of the Kara. So he's actually there during this meeting, and he's actually one of their members, and he's also a samurai just like them. I changed that because before he was just a fanatic that used to be in Orochimaru's group, and here it's just like, okay, it makes a little bit more sense for him to just join their group anyway. Especially since he was only in the group for like one arc, only around for like one arc, and then he just died. So it doesn't really matter. So he's a member, he's there, and he's like, okay, so if we kill this, daughter of the last Uchiha, that being Sarada, if we kill her, then what exactly would happen? Do we stop everything? And then Priestess Moroku's like, well, yeah, since Sarada is so important to the end of the story, yes, if you do kill her, then you guys would win and you wouldn't have any opposition. They're like, okay, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go and try to kill Sarada. And mind you, this is episode 20 of the show. Sarada is still in the academy. She didn't even become a Genin yet. So she's just relaxing with, a bunch of her friends that she has at the school. Mind you, this is like Team 25. So for Boruto, that has this kid named Renga, other kid named Hako, another kid named Hoki. So the Hoki, some people might recognize him. He's that one kid from Boruto who is trying his best to look like Kakashi, trying to be like him. And like, that's his team, right? So at the time when they're sitting there being like, okay, let's go kill Sarada. Sarada's chilling on the Naruto swing, the swing of sadness from before. And she's just hanging out with her friends. And they're just talking. They're like, oh, okay, maybe let's go to the library. Let's do some studying, right? And then they go to the library. They're talking. And Hoki and Renga, they're sitting there arguing about who would win in a fight, Gaara or Kakashi. And there's in there arguing about it's like, oh, well, Gaara would win because he has this, and Kakashi would win because he has this. Regular power scaling arguments, kind of referencing how regular Naruto fans argue about who would win and what would happen, that kind of thing. They, just referencing that in general. And then, later on they go get some food and then they're walking back home. And then from there, that's when Shin Uchiha and another samurai named Deepa, he shows up and they're both wearing the Anbu disguises that I described before. And then they show up and then they also just now, like when they, arrive in the village and they see Sarada, they're on the top of a building and then they drop like 3 bodies of some other hidden leaf Anbu that they defeated just now. They drop them to the ground and they're like, oh, okay, here we go. So Shin Uchiha and Deepa, they show up and they start fighting them. So they kill everybody on Team 25. They just kill her friends right in front of them. And Sarada tried to save them with her medical ninjutsu, but she couldn't. She wasn't good enough at it in order to do it yet. And then later on, Sai showed up and saved Sarada and fought them off. But then Sai got jumped by the 2 of them. And then he got dropped. But Sarada was able to save Sai because his wounds weren't as deep as everybody else's. And then from there, it was like, Deepa was like, okay, we can't really kill her right now because, if we continue, the rest of the Hidden Leaf Ninja are going to show up and Naruto's going to show up and then we won't be able to beat him. So they, disappear up in smoke and run off to where they were supposed to go. And after that, they bring Sai back to the hospital. And then Sarada also goes over there. And then later on, she tells Naruto what happened, right? And then she's standing there with Sakura, telling Naruto, like, okay, here's what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And then, as she's talking, Sarada unlocks her Sharingan, right? She unlocks the Sharingan in the moment because she's so upset and traumatized by what happened. And it's also because she failed to save her friends. And it was something that was very traumatic to her. It's like she was trying to use the medical ninjutsu, but she felt like she was responsible for letting them die. Even though it really wasn't her fault because she's only like 11 and she doesn't really know how to use medical ninjutsu, but that's the way that she feels. So now she unlocks the Sharingan because of that traumatic experience. And then later on, and then afterwards, like Sakura is hugging her, trying to console her. It's like, okay, it's going to be all right. And then in that moment, Konohamaru comes there and he's like, okay, he runs in like, Naruto, we got ambushed because he just came back from the Great Naruto Bridge. He's like, yo, Naruto, we just got ambushed. And he tells him what happened. And then, afterwards, Naruto was like, all right, I got to go over there. I got to figure out what's going on. I got to, call Sasuke, tell him what's happening. And then from there, it's the same arc that happens just regular. It's the same thing from the original where Shin Uchiha is defeated by Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura after what happened. And then Deepa obviously gets away from this point in time, but Sasuke later tracks him down. So in the original, right, Sarada unlocked her Sharingan just because she was excited to see Sasuke after years and years of him being away. And realistically, that doesn't make any sense because everybody in Naruto, in the Uchiha clan, has unlocked their Sharingan through a very traumatic event that involved their best friend. Like, for example, even with Obito, where he first unlocked his Sharingan, with him, he was at war in the third Ninja War, fighting for his life, fighting to protect Kakashi, fighting to protect his friend. That's a pretty reasonable way to unlock the Sharingan. And that's one of the weakest ones. That's one of the weakest ones where it's like, oh, that isn't as much of a big deal to unlock the Sharingan, not as much of a momentous occasion as compared to everybody else. Now, mind you, everybody else had other much more traumatic experiences, like with what happened with Itachi and and his dad taking him to war and being like, okay, here's what war is really like. And then the same thing with Sasuke and obviously the Uchiha massacre that happened, and then multiple times seeing his family getting killed. All of that is all extremely traumatic and important, and I wanted to keep that with what happened with Sarada. And you can't really do that where it's just like, oh, I'm just happy to see my dad. And like, it just feels contrived, and it feels like, the Sharingan has, decreased in its value, and just like its dramatic effect has been decreased by the way they did it in the original. So now when she just uses the Sharingan again, it's more just like, okay, she's running over to see her dad, but she already unlocked the Sharingan in the first place because of something else that happened. So it's things like that where you're analyzing what went wrong at a certain point and what you want to do. And then it's like, okay, I'm changing that for this reason. I'm changing that for this reason. And we're going on about that. And then also, mind you, it's a show about Sasuke at this point. The show is about Sasuke at this point. So we're in that first episode, we're kind of building up to seeing Sasuke later on, but we're focusing on his daughter for right now because that arc is indeed about his daughter. So all of this builds on what we're going to do with the Kara in the later episodes, and also what exactly we're going to do with Sasuke and how much of a main character that he becomes later on. There's so much more that we're going to do with Sasuke, and all of these different arcs that he's going to do. And eventually he is going to give the show back to Boruto, and it's going to be like, okay, Sasuke is out of the picture for this point in time. And then Boruto gets his show back, where it's like, okay, we're focusing on Boruto now. But the reason that people haven't really liked Boruto that much was because we really didn't get enough time to really get to like him as much as we did with Sasuke, as we did with everybody else, right? So with Boruto, the issue is the fact that we don't know him like we do Sasuke. We didn't get as much time to really get to know him or really like him or really see him grow that much throughout the show, because we just kind of, it's like, oh yeah, this is the show about Boruto, and Naruto's in the background now. I don't really want to see that as much as I do with everybody else. That's the same as if you decided, oh yeah, we're canceling Dragon Ball Z. Well, not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball Super. That's what we're canceling Dragon Ball Super, and we're going to focus on Goten now. I don't want to focus on Goten. I want to focus on Goku. He's the main character. He's going to be the one that's fighting the most strong villains. He's the one that's the most important. Why are we focusing on Goten? Just because that's his kid. That's the same situation, right? I don't want to focus on that character as much because we haven't had as much time to really see him grow and really see him become his own person. We haven't had as much time to do that. That is the issue with Naruto itself, is because we haven't had enough time to actually like Boruto and actually like him. Because a lot of the time when we're watching the show and reading it, it's the characters really seem just like clones of their parents, and they don't really seem like they're their own people. They don't have their own goals or their own aspirations or their own motivations to really be ninjas in the first place. That is the problem that we have with Boruto. So we need time in order to build Boruto up as the character that he needs to be. And mind you, later on, when Sarada, Boruto, and Mitsuki all become Genin and all graduate from the academy, I also wanted to have Sasuke be their sensei instead of Konohamaru. Because really think about it. Konohamaru hasn't taught anybody on that team a single jutsu besides Boruto teaching him the Rasengan, I guess. But at the same time, like, Naruto could have taught him that regardless. So really think about it. Konohamaru did nothing for that team when it comes to being a sensei. And that could be something that I think that Konohamaru could be an amazing sensei for Himawari's team, for that next generation, or that, the younger generation there. He could be a good sensei for her, maybe teaching her some sealing jutsu. Maybe Himawari can learn some actual Uzumaki sealing jutsu, because Konohamaru has some pretty good seals by himself and having that same connection could be good. But Boruto doesn't use seals. He doesn't use sealing jutsus, even though he is an Uzumaki. And Naruto, it took him, years and years in order to figure out what that even was, because nobody was around to even teach him that or even figure out like, okay, here's what the Uzumaki clan even does. That's the situation. So that can be a lot easier for Himawari to learn rather than doing that with Boruto. And the point is, Sasuke has lightning style jutsu that he can teach everybody on the team. Boruto has lightning style chakra, Sarada has lightning style chakra, and so does Mitsuki. Everybody on that team can learn the same moves. So the Chidori is specific to the Sharingan, right? You need the Sharingan in order to use the Chidori. But there's other versions of the Chidori that anybody can use, such as the purple lightning that Kakashi created after he lost the Sharingan and he still needed to use a Chidori in order to defend himself and everybody else. And he made his own purple lightning version. Mind you, they can just learn from Kakashi and be like, oh yeah, everybody can learn that same move because they have the same lightning style chakra. And that can be consistent with everybody on that same team. So regardless of what's going on, Sasuke is going to be a much better sensei, not even because of what he can just teach them. Also, think about it. He has the whole Taka team that he was with, Suigetsu, Karin, and Jugo, who can teach Boruto, Sasuke, who can teach Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki all of these different moves and all of these different jutsu. Like Karin is an Uzumaki. She can teach Boruto Uzumaki sealing jutsu. Mitsuki and Jugo both know Sage Mode. Sarada, like Suigetsu and Boruto both have a water style chakra. They both can use water style moves. Sarada can also learn medical ninjutsu from Karin as well. There's so much that they can learn from these people. And it's not just because I don't like Konohamaru. It's because Konohamaru is not going to be the best sensei for that team. Sasuke is. And by focusing on Sasuke for that point in time, and then just being like, okay, this is Sasuke's show, but he is also teaching these three, and we still know that they're going to be important later on. We give them the time for people to understand, hey, we actually like this person. Hey, this person actually grew from this point to this point. Hey, we're going to work with that. And on top of that, I don't actually want Sasuke to go on missions with that Genin team. I want him to just focus on training them. I want him to just be like, okay, send them over there. Send them over there to train with this guy. Send them over there to train with this guy. Send them over there to train with that guy. Just getting them to learn the skills that they need to have to be as strong as they can, and not even worrying about doing missions. Not even worried about doing missions. Anything to do with missions should happen with a completely different team, such as what would be Team 5. So Team 5, I'm going to change the roster of Team 5. So before, it was Denki, Metal Lee, and Iwabi, right? So with Iwabi, I actually sent Iwabi over to the Land of Iron. So essentially, there's this one girl, Tsubaki. She's a samurai, and she's like 12. And she was basically like a transfer student from the Land of Iron to the Hidden Leaf, and she became a ninja over there, right? And I'm like, okay, so with that information, transfer Iwabi over to the Land of Iron and have him learn how to use Kenjutsu like they do. Because Iwabi just only has a little bit of Earth style jutsu, and that's it. He needs the rest of an actual moveset in order to fight the enemies that he's supposed to be fighting. That's very important for him. So I want him to be useful later on, but the only way for me to do that is to actually get him the training that he needs. And so now that we have Tsubaki, right, I want to put her on a team with a new restructured Team 5, right? I want to take Inojin and put him on Team 5, and I want to keep Metal Lee, and I want to change. So Udon was their actual team leader, like Udon, the kid with the glasses. He did absolutely nothing for that team. He didn't teach them a single jutsu. I don't know why he was the team leader. I have no idea. So I'm making Rock Lee the Jonin of that team. And I want to give Rock Lee so much more screen time because he just absolutely deserves it. He's one of the strongest in the Hidden Leaf, and they don't use him like they're supposed to because he's a plot hole for them, especially for Otsutsuki's. Because Otsutsuki's, one of the main things they're weak to is taijutsu, and that's exactly what he specializes in. So if he just beats up the Otsutsuki's, he just pops gate 7 or even gate 8, against the main villain and actually wins, then he's, usurping Boruto and everybody else that's supposed to be the main characters of the show. That's the issue that they have with Rock Lee. That's why they keep sidelining him. But Rock Lee, I want to give him a much more center stage, and I want to use him in a little bit more different ways than people would think. So I want to take Inojin off of that new version of Team 10. And it may be a little bit controversial for people to break up Ino Shikacho, but that version of Ino Shikacho doesn't really do much. I'm like, compared to the original one, they don't really do much with that team. They really don't. They're really not as useful as they once were. So taking Inojin, who now has size powers, right? He has his same drawing jutsu. He has the mind transfer, and he has a little sword with him too. He can be very useful. Put him on a team with Tsubaki, that samurai girl, and Metal Lee, and you put him, like, you have a real team there. You have a real team with Tsubaki, Metal Lee, and Inojin. That's a really good team. And they have the Jonin of Rock Lee, who's going to teach them taijutsu. That makes sense for Tsubaki as well. That makes sense for Inojin. That makes sense for Metal Lee. And on top of that, when we have the mention of Metal Lee, I also wanted to give him a much more focus on his regular boxing. Rather than the full kung fu inspired thing that they were doing with Rock Lee. I want to make Metal Lee his own person. And with Metal Lee, I wanted to give him moves that are much more inspired by Hajime no Ippo, where he would do moves like Sendo Smash, even like Frog Punch, obviously Dempsey Roll. And I would call that style the 10 leaves, referencing both the Leaf Hurricane and also the 10 leaves that Ippo grabbed off of the tree in the first episode. So you have these things that are references there, and then you also have something that where he is actually much more inclined to be his own character and be like recognized for being himself rather than being a copy of Rock Lee. Because with him, they're like, oh, we're gonna make him a little bit different because, like, oh, instead of powering up like a normal person and getting stronger with the 8 gates, we're gonna have him get anxiety, and then that's gonna be the reason why he's able to use a Leaf Hurricane or able to do all of that. That is incredibly lame, and I kind of want him to keep doing that with his defense rather than making that the only thing he's able to do. I still need him to actually box, and I still need him to actually put on pressure when it comes to defeating the enemy. I still need him to be able to throw a punch. That is the issue that I have with Metal Lee. And that's the way I want to change him. I want him to use the same weights that Rock Lee had. And since footwork is so incredibly vital to boxing, and having those leg weights, and then once he takes them off, he can really use his feet and he can really start throwing as many punches as he needs, throwing real combinations. I want to see that out of Metal Lee, because that's something that he's able to do. And then he can have the same kind of like some pretty cool training montages with him, Rock Lee, even having Mike Guy and Choza, which actually, if you guys didn't know, Choza, Choji's dad, was actually the sensei for Mike Guy. He was actually like the Jonin sensei for Mike Guy. It was Ebisu and Genma who was on that same team with Mike Guy during the Third Great Ninja War. So that they were just on a different team alongside Minato in Team 7. So there's a little bit more information there, but that could be a very interesting character to expand upon and just add Metal Lee and make him the character that he's really supposed to be, and give Rock Lee the screen time that he's really meant to have. And we can focus on the main missions where it was like, oh, this villain is doing this. Oh, this guy is doing this. Give it to Team 5 and let them do their thing. And then meanwhile, Sasuke is training Team 7. He's like, okay, you guys go over there. You're training to do this. You're training to do that. Like right now, Team 7 should be side characters because they are not the main characters right now. The show is Sasuke, Shinobi versus Samurai. We're not focusing on Boruto right now. We're letting him train. We're letting him work on what he needs to work on before we even think about putting him anywhere near the spotlight right now. Because that was the issue that they had before, where they put him in the spotlight before nobody even knew who he was. We're just expected to just like who he is now. And it's just like, who are you? Right? That's the issue that they had before, and they need to fix that. So essentially, we're working with all of the, this villain shows up to the village or this mission, you send Team 5, and Sasuke can somewhat be involved as well as a Shadow Hokage, spying on the enemy, which is very important, spying on the enemy, and understanding where exactly those Otsutsuki's are coming from, understanding where the car, like what the plans of the car are, what their powers are, figuring all of that out is very important for Sasuke to do. Actually being a shinobi, actually spying on the enemy, doing what he's supposed to do as a Shadow Hokage, that's what he's supposed to really do. I haven't seen him do any of that during the original, which is a huge, huge problem, and is wasting Sasuke's potential because he isn't doing that. So that's what I really wanted to focus on with Sasuke, Shinobi versus Samurai. That's the reason why I'm making Unknown, and that's exactly what we're going to try to do. But, thank you for listening to the long-winded rant of mine about this new project, and thank you for checking out this new channel. I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore your support. Thank you. And I hope that you can check out the new manga pages that we have for it, and some of the episodes that I'm going to post on AO3 or maybe Wattpad a little bit later on for the first 3 episodes that I've written. And then we can continue the series. Let me know what you like, what things that you want to add, things that you want to see. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.